Welcome to Weir's World, the All Ears podcast, which will take you on a roller coaster journey around the world. Follow me from Beijing to New York City and back as I share my tales to tell, encompassing the 10 years of Gleadric and the Kabbalistic Cavalry, as well as touring with some well-known. From celebrity stories to travel nightmares, we'll be reminiscing on the ridiculousness of it all, with special guests jumping in along the way. All Ears is your new favourite weekly podcast. Ali, hello.
Hello again.
How are you?
Very well. How are you?
I'm good, mate. How's your mood this week?
My mood has been better than last week's, I would say. Because last week I think we started off going off on a tangent a wee bit.
Yeah, a little bit.
We got distracted. I was also thinking we seem to start with a sort of hello, how's things? Maybe we should think of a new hello way.
Well, I was just about to ask you what you had for your dinner.
I had salmon tonight with a wee bit of veg and potatoes.
Did you have any dressing on your salmon?
It was peppered salmon, so the salmon was fine as it was. It came from the well-known German supermarket.
Oh, the four-letter one.
One of those. One of those, yeah.
Not to be confirmed which one it was.
Yeah, we can't mention.
Can't possibly
again
mention. No, absolutely not. I had spicy beef noodles.
Spicy beef noodles.
Yeah, it was pretty good.
That sounds almost like a takeaway.
Yeah, but it wasn't.
It wasn't.
No.
Was it homemade or was it
homemade? Yeah.
So
it's a good level of spice as well.
Ingredients bought from
German supermarkets cannot be confirmed.
Yes.
Yeah. I've been thinking this week. Is there anyone else you feel you need to apologise to?
I mean, there probably is. I have been on the earth for 27 years, and I imagine I have annoyed a lot of people.
Yeah. Are there anyone in specific to relate back to last week? Are there anyone that from drunken award ceremonies that you feel like you've missed out an apology for? Or
again, when I'm drunk, most often than not at gigs, it tends to be around you. So if I need to apologise to anyone, it would likely be yourself or members of the band. I feel like I owe Ross an apology.
I apologise to Ross.
I don't know why though. I just feel like I want to apologise. Is there anyone you wish to apologise to?
I feel like my apology list might be slightly more interesting than an unknown apology to Ross. But
yeah,
I realised that I had missed out the time when at an awards ceremony where I should add, not deliberately, slammed the door in Sandy Tom's face.
Oh wow.
That wasn't very cool. So, Sandy, I apologise if you're listening. Do you have LinkedIn?
I don't actually. I used to. I don't anymore.
I don't have LinkedIn. I've never used LinkedIn. But I've received a couple of emails in the last fortnight from Sandy Tom saying that she's trying to connect with me on LinkedIn. And
right.
I wonder if she wants to discuss the door slamming saga.
Just to clarify, you haven't actually spoken to her since the door slamming thing, have you?
I have not spoken to her since the door slamming situation, no.
And how did she react?
I think she was taken aback at having I think she was taken aback.
Literally knocked back a wee bit.
Yeah, I think she was taken aback by having had a door slam at her. But yeah, I mean, I'm sure she's lovely, and if she wants to reach out via another platform that I do have, like unlike LinkedIn.
Yeah. So what you're saying is Sandy Tom wants to get in touch with you, but you can't be bothered signing up to LinkedIn.
Well, I feel like it's quite a big hassle to sign up to LinkedIn just to connect with one person. But then again, there's maybe a reason behind her trying to get in touch.
There's maybe more to the door thing.
Maybe. Yeah, who would know?
Yeah.
Also, so just to clarify for the listeners, we are not recording these episodes as we go. We're kind of recording a few at a time. So at the time of recording this, episode 3 is just out, and this is episode 6. So we're a few weeks. We're speaking into the future.
This is really bad. If something tragic has happened between these, we are recording 3 weeks in advance.
Yeah.
If something really bad has happened between now and then, this is quite bad actually.
Yeah, that's very true.
It depends. It could be something really marvelous has happened in the same time.
It's possible. I feel I also need to apologise to my sister.
Oh.
She has been an avid follower of the podcast since day one.
Shout out to Rachel.
She makes up about 35% of all listeners right now.
Does she listen once, or does she listen like 35 times?
She probably. My voice. She doesn't get enough of it clearly. So she obviously is listening again and again and again. However, she's taken up exception to the fact that I mentioned the time when I got Pete Doherty to phone my ex-girlfriend's sister.
Yeah.
And yet we've not referenced the fact that the well-known designers Colin and Justin phoned my sister from my phone as well.
Right.
I don't really know how we put that into a story, other than the fact that I bumped into them at an event. We had some drinks. I told them my sister liked them and gave them my phone. And that's about as exciting as it gets. So I feel like it doesn't want an episode on its own.
So you, even if, see that story, if you just threw something else in that just like spices it up, because, you know, people are into loads of different things in the world.
Yeah.
Even if it was like, I don't know, something involved like toe sucking or something like that. Just throw in those two words in changes the story completely, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, if Sandy Thomas taken aback by a door being slammed in her face, I think I'm equally as taken aback that toe sucking has now been referenced in Weir's World podcast.
Yep. With nobody actually doing it.
Yeah, I mean, unconfirmed, but yeah.
There you go.
Are you an experienced toe sucker?
Not personally. No. Personally.
You don't suck your own toes, is what you mean. So you've maybe sucked someone else's toes.
Wait, hold on. Let me try it. Hold on. Let me see if I can.
For the recording, Ali's currently trying to suck his toe.
Nope, I can't do it. No.
Yeah.
So I can't suck my toe.
I can confirm that I'm not flexible enough to do that.
No.
And will not be trying it during the recording of this podcast.
Okay, so...
However, Colin and Justin did, I remember, was it Colin? Justin told me a story about how they were on Jonathan Ross on the same night as Oasis.
Right.
And I think Colin was wearing the same pair of trousers as Liam Gallagher. They both worn the same trousers on the show.
Wow.
And Liam was raging. Liam was massively furious.
Yeah.
That you can imagine that Colin had worn the same trousers as him.
And it was definitely Colin's fault. It wasn't Liam's fault.
It would definitely be Colin's fault.
Right. Yeah.
As you were.
Yeah.
However, I can confirm. Again, today is the day where the third episode has been released. We actually have listeners, and I've become a bit addicted to the analytics section of our page.
Yep.
That tells us that 20% of our listeners are in the USA.
That is a big percentage, actually.
So if you listen in from the United States of America, thank you very much for listening in. It appears that we also have listeners in Canada, Australia, and the exotic island of Ireland.
I was speaking to somebody during the week who said about the podcast, they came across it, and I'd mentioned, it's actually reaching people in Australia and Canada and America. And at that point, they sort of said, do you realise, just how it's growing? And I took myself a step back and went, actually, I don't. I've never really... Because we just sit down and we're just two guys talking every single week. I mean, we talk a lot of crap, let's be honest. But the fact that we're talking a lot of crap and we're now reaching people around the world is quite a daunting thing, a wee bit.
It's quite scary, isn't it, that our nonsense chat is getting right round the world.
Yeah.
Literally.
It's quite impressive. So yeah, like you say, thank you. If you are listening, thank you. It means the world, literally.
Yeah, with Queen Adam Lambert.
The band Queen, not Her Majesty.
Not Her Majesty the Queen. That is a later episode, I can confirm.
Oh, so it is, yeah.
Read your notes, Ali.
Yes.
Come on. Yeah. That happened in 2015. And it came on the back of an email from Brian May. And the email from Brian May had come in on a random Monday night, noting how they were playing at the Hydro.
Was this from Brian himself? Yeah, personally.
Yeah. When you get an email that says Brian May as the person who's sending it, it takes you by surprise a bit.
Yeah.
Sure enough, there were some emails exchanged about how they were coming to the Hydro.
Yeah.
And how they were looking to include the pipes as a way of reaching out to a Scottish crowd.
Yeah.
Obviously, the pipes are our national instrument. And so I assume he was aware of the fact that there's a pipe version of We Will Rock You out there from the Red Hot. I think it was done originally by the Red Hot Chili Peppers.
Yeah.
And he wanted to incorporate that in some way into the show at the Hydro.
Has he ever said how he managed to actually get in touch with you?
No.
It's quite interesting that sort of one of the world's most famous rock superstars has somehow just come across you without actually there's no explanation.
It's a bit of a mind-blowing situation, If any other legendary rock stars want to get in touch, then they can do so.
And if they're good friends with Brian, he has Mr. May. Let's say,
Yeah.
he has your own email address.
Absolutely.
That's the easiest way to get in touch.
Rock stars, if you'd like to include me in your show, speak to Brian. Brian will give you all the details. I couldn't possibly disclose them on air.
No.
But yeah, there were some emails then exchanged between Brian and Roger and I, which it was crazy to be getting these emails where from Brian to me, where Roger Taylor, again one of the greatest drummers of all time, and Adam Lambert are copied in. I'm just reading Adam's response here, saying to Brian's emails, saying, "Yeah, sounds cool to me. What song?" And I'd said, obviously we're going to be doing We Will Rock You, and he replied, "Cool concept. I dig it." There you go. I have the proof right there.
Yeah.
It was great. So I eventually got confirmation from their tour manager, Juliet, that this is what was going to be happening. I was then. This happened in October, and the gig was to be the October of 2014. It must have been because the gig was going to be in the January. Brian then I didn't hear from them for a while, but Brian then reached out to me in December, maybe a week before Christmas, to say that they were playing at Hogmanay at Big Ben. They were going to be playing the Big Ben Rocks thing at down in London, and he invited me down to play then at the Hogmanay show live on BBC One. Yep. But being loyal as ever to my boys, we already had albeit rather small gig with Gleadrick lined up at the Cask and Cork pub in Dundee, which
great. Yeah,
no
great
longer
pub.
exists.
Yeah,
but
great pub.
I mean, Cask and Cork, Big Ben. Where would you play, Ali?
Well, I'm thinking more Ross White or Brian May. Who would I rather spend my Hogmanay with?
They've both got a similar hairdo.
They're both.
Brian's is bigger.
They're both
Hair.
legendary guitar players. Some
Yeah.
might say.
Cut from the same cloth.
Yes, definitely.
Unbelievable. Obviously, I declined that in favour of playing with my boys at the Cask and Cork, which was equally a great night. And I actually think Brian respected the fact that I didn't just drop the band in order to go and play with Queen, which it was a really difficult decision to make, to be honest, because it would have been amazing to see in the new year with Queen. However, going into the new year in January, it was obviously amazing to have that experience. A few weeks ago, Ali, you asked me about how nervous I get or not.
Yeah.
I remember being in the taxi that day on the way around to the Hydro, nervous it does not even cut it, about the fact that I was about to meet, never mind play with, like one of the greatest bands of all time. I was escorted, in fact I arrived and I was to phone Juliet, but I'd gone to the wrong door. And I think they were in the middle of something when I'd phoned her. It started off a little bit frosty. I was a bit concerned about how the day was going to go because I'd gone to the wrong door. However, by the time I actually met her, it was grand. She took us in. She gave me my own little. So I can't even put into words the feeling of walking through the backstage. Do you know the backstage corridor at the Hydro?
Yeah, I've been at the Hydro. Yeah.
So walking down that backstage corridor, and then each door is labelled Brian, Roger, Adam, crew, and then they put Piper on my dressing room door. That it was just so surreal.
Yeah.
And I was told just to relax in my room for a wee bit, and I'd get a knock when someone was ready to come and get me. I'm sat there, minding my own business, wondering how the madness is going to unfold in the day.
Yep.
And I get to knock at the door, and it's Juliet, and she says, "Craig, Brian would like to meet you now." I thought, oh no, here we go. And so I walked along the corridor. Again, my stomach was in knots, like absolute butterflies at this point. And gets to Brian's dressing room door, and there he is. He came to the door in this like black Hawaiian style shirt with his specs on the end of his nose, looked like a proper professor. I mean, he is a professor. Yeah. And shook his hand, and he said, "Come in, let's sit down, have a chat." So it was just Brian and Sarah, his PA at the time, but she left, and literally she left Brian and I alone in this room, and we're sitting there. He's got Red Special on his lap, like possibly one of the most famous guitars of all time. Like I don't know if you know the story about that. He handmade that guitar himself.
I heard some rumours about not the official story.
To like his own specifications. So like to sit there with him and this guitar that's recorded some of the absolute classic songs that we know and love today. It was just he was sitting asking me all about Gleadrick, which is so bizarre. And I remember showing him a video of the Dundee Christmas light switch on where we were playing Teenage Kicks. It's not something you ever think you're going to do.
Yeah. At that point, did you not have like a million questions for him?
I remember sitting there talking with him. He was asking how I was. He spoke about the Big Ben event. We spoke about Gleadrick, the Teenage Kicks thing. And the last thing he said to me before I left the dressing room was that, you know, Craig, Freddie always loved a man in a kilt. And I thought, whoa, what a powerful thing to have been told as you're leaving the dressing room. So sure enough, Brian had said, look, someone will be for you when it's time to come up for sound check. Yeah. So I toddled off back to my wee dressing room, Piper on the door. I sat there waiting for the next knock, and sure enough it came. And it was, Craig, we're good to go for sound check. Let's see how we go. So I went up, and I'm trying to think, this might have been the first time I was on the Hydro stage. Yeah, I don't think I'd played at the Hydro before that, at that point. And going up to see the runway that they put in place for for Brian to be running out into the crowd. Yeah. The massive screen that was to be put up behind the band. Yeah. The sheer scale of production that was there on the stage that night was.
Obviously, we can't. The listeners can't see that and things like that. But I believe it is on YouTube. Just for context, to see the scale of the stage that you're talking about.
It is, yeah, it's on YouTube. I'm sure you can get some pictures as well on Google. I actually think that if the pictures possibly don't do it justice when you actually go up and stand on this stage though, and like see how vast and how much attention to detail has been put in place for the staging and production. Absolutely massive. That was where I met Roger. Again, lovely guy. So surreal to be there with one of the greatest and most well-known drummers. Yeah. And then Adam Lambert himself as well. We met as well at that point too. And all the like backing band, the crew and whatnot. They all came over, shook hands. And so then Brian at that point talked through about everyone, what the vision was, and what we were going to do. Yeah. And so we bashed through a few times basically the ritual of what it was going to be. I was so nervous, like doing a rehearsal with these guys, and I made a few mistakes at that point because again, just that absolute, there was no crowd, but the absolute euphoria, adrenaline buzz of standing there rehearsing with again probably the greatest band of all time. It's just an unbelievable feeling. In fact, we did the sound check, and then Juliet had come to me and said, look, can you tell your family that we've got spaces for them all backstage to come and have a drink with us after the show? Yeah. And I remember phoning the family and them just being like, whoa, this is going to be some night. But at that point, it was the part that every musician or anybody involved in any kind of production struggles with. That dead time between sound check and the gig actually kicking off. Yeah. It felt like, for me at that time was endless. It went on for forever. Like, it's the worst part of... It is the worst part of any show. Yeah. And do you agree, like, when you're doing sound, that's a horrible part of the show?
Yeah, I mean, we do it together an awful lot as well. Like, the amount of times we sound check somewhere, whether it's one of our own gigs or we're somewhere else, and you sound check, and then, you do have an hour or two or something like that to kill. And in my mind, sometimes you kind of, it's almost too much time because you know everything's in place, but you're double checking, you're doubting yourself, thinking there's something not quite right, there's something I forgot, there's bound to be. But there's just this much time in between it all. And
the sound check flies by, the gig flies by, but that time between sound check and gig, it's endless. It goes on for forever. Yeah. Anyway, as that time wore on, so there was no support band. It was just Queen were playing the whole show. Okay. I'm sitting there in my room and I can hear Adam doing the most incredible vocal warm-ups. You and I have both heard so many vocal warm-ups from different people, like groups, choirs, singers, musicians over the years. Yeah. But you've never heard anything like this. The set of pipes, like the lungs on that boy, are unbelievable. Like, it shocked me the way that he was hitting those notes in his vocal warm-up. It was really frightening. Again, in that time, I'm reverting between tuning pipes, twiddling my thumbs, just kind of waiting and waiting and waiting. Yeah. And then suddenly it was showtime. I didn't see the guys again until we were on that stage. I stood side of stage to watch the performance. They opened with One Vision, and again the way that the the way that the production lent itself to that opening number, and the stage just kind of it dropped. It was really, it was unbelievable, and stood there obviously to watch them play what is effectively a greatest hit set of all the well-known. No, what's your favourite Queen song? Did you know I was going to ask you this?
Oh no! Oh, this is terrible. Everyone knows the classic Queen songs and stuff like that, and the ones everyone goes to. And the first time I ever heard the full thing and all their input and stuff was actually seeing the musical, believe it or not, We Will Rock You, and that was incredible because I believe read up a fair bit about it, but their vision was to take a Queen concert onto a stage, a theatre stage. So the concept behind it was incredible. I remember seeing it when I was quite young, went down to London and stuff, and it was credible. And that point I was like, it felt like a concert on a theatre stage. And that for me, seeing We Will Rock You kind of kickstarted my passion for wanting to do a lot more shows actually.
I think though, We Will Rock You was kind of groundbreaking in the sense that it opened up the idea of rock bands being involved in in musicals too.
Yeah.
Like, I think that sort of led to things like American Idiot, the musical.
Yeah.
I think it really opened the door for those things to kind of happen.
Yeah.
I actually went to see We Will Rock You the musical too. I'd forgotten about that. My gran used to take us to musicals at the Edinburgh Playhouse when we were younger too. And actually, the night that we went to see We Will Rock You at the Edinburgh Playhouse, Brian came out as a guest, which at the time I didn't really appreciate who he was or whatever, but I can still visualise and remember him being there and playing the guitar solo in. I think he came on for the guitar solo in Bohemian Rhapsody.
Yes, that sounds about right. Yeah, yep.
At the end of the show, yeah.
Because I know when they shut down the London production, the song "The Show Must Go On" doesn't feature in the musical,
right?
But it done on that last night when Brian appeared and Roger was there, and you can see it online, and it is an incredible video. Actually, it's amazing.
You still not answered the question. What's your favourite Queen song?
This is really difficult. Actually, I think my favourite, probably purely because it's the classic and everyone knows, is Bohemian Rhapsody. Yeah, for me, it's just it's incredible. Like the variation in the music from it, start to end, is incredible. Yeah,
I mean, it's really hard to pick a bad Queen song, though, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
I think seeing the songs live, One Vision is massive, and so is not quite so well known, but Stone Cold Crazy. What a song! It sounds like the power in that is, and the harmonies. Yeah, I think that's a real quality of Queen's anyway. The harmonies. Bohemian Rhapsody is the perfect example of that, isn't it?
And all their songs are like that. You know, just the total variation of different speeds that they'll go at, different styles that they'll play at, and it's testament not only to Queen and Adam Lambert now on how they do the live shows, but when you look at the old concerts and stuff, and how Freddie Mercury was, how he just had control of a whole audience just by his presence on stage. It was incredible.
I think he really changed live music for a lot of live bands. Yeah. Like, in terms of things like audience participation as well. Like, he was the epitome of having like an audience in the palm of your hand. Yeah. For sure. Yeah. So to see them, to stand there at the side of the stage, rattling through these greatest hits. Mm-hmm. Roger Taylor did an actual drum solo. Brian did the most face-melting guitar solo. Like you've never heard anything like it. Yeah. So one of the really powerful parts of the show was that in Who Wants to Live Forever they had a hologram of Freddie. Yeah. And it was almost like Freddie and Adam were singing the words back to each other. It was really, really powerful. Like to hear that, and the crowd just responded unbelievably well to it. Yeah.
And to be fair, you've mentioned about the whole sort of the scale of the production and stuff like that as well. And now that you've said the hologram, not only are Queen incredible, but without getting political again, like we did the other week, testament to all the people that work on these things.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
You know, there's hundreds of people, literally hundreds and thousands of people across the world, every single day, work day in, day out. I've got a few friends who are in that industry and do it day in, day out. Testament to them, because the stuff that they manage to make is incredible. And especially when you mention things like hologram, that's the way these things are going now. And
so maybe when I die, I don't know if I die. I hope I don't die first, but I hope none of the other guys die anytime soon either.
I hope none of us die. If I'm being brutally honest,
we're all going to die, but hopefully not anytime soon. Yeah. But Imagine a hologram of me beamed down right there with the band.
I mean, it would be weird if you. I don't know how. It's actually quite. Now that you get onto that point, it's quite interesting. Imagine how like so Brian and Roger feel
playing next to a
their,
hologram.
Their friend, who they knew for years, is now a hologram.
Powerful. You could see. You could actually see the emotion. You could feel the emotion in the crowd, but you could also see and almost touch that kind of raw emotion from Brian and Roger as well as they were going through that song.
Yeah.
So basically, it came towards the end of the set. They closed off the main part of the show with Bohemian Rhapsody. Right?
Oh, okay.
As we've said, possibly the greatest British song of all time. If not, it's absolutely up there. Like it's everybody. You ask anyone in the world about Bohemian Rhapsody, and they will know it.
Yeah.
If they've not, they're a hermit living under a rock. There is no doubt about that. And at that point, the lights went down. I was to be the next person on the stage at the start of the encore to basically go up and start off the encore with "We Will Rock You."
Yeah.
Right. So the lights went down. The roadies were guiding me to the stairs with the torch, and I was literally about to take the first step up onto the stage, and I felt a tap on the back, right? And I turned around, and it was Adam Lambert's manager, and he looked at me, pulled a face, and went, "Don't up." And I was just like, wow, like as if there was not enough pressure on me at this point. You've just hit me with that.
Yeah.
He probably meant it as a joke, but it wasn't that
was
funny
now,
at the
it
time.
was stuck in your head now.
It's funny now. It's funny now, but at the time when that's the last thing you've been told as you're walking onto the stage at the Hydro to play with Queen. So yeah, up I went. The crowd went daft, obviously at the sight of someone in a kilt.
Yeah.
Sucked them up. Went into "We Will Rock You." From like the first note, the crowd were behind it. Like you can imagine, like they were singing all the words. You could see, looking out, you could see all the fans jumping up and down. Actually, did I tell you that Ross was at that gig?
No,
Ross actually was at the gig.
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
I couldn't make him out in the haze. I didn't really look for him. But yeah, Ross was at that gig. Blasting through "We Will Rock You," and then at a certain point in my run through, Roger was to come on and join in with obviously that iconic drum beat.
The drum. Yeah.
So Roger batters through the drum beat, and then Brian comes running on and literally fires into this massive face melter of a solo.
Yeah.
And basically my cue to stop was when I heard that first bust of that guitar, which was see being on that stage while that first chord was struck.
Yeah.
Oh, it literally shook the stage. It was mad. And so that was my cue to go off, but I couldn't resist sort of turning around to look, because I was at the edge of the walkway, right, the end of the walkway, and I'm there on the stage. Turned around to see what the scene was, and I turned around and could see the Brian's pointing at me to get the crowd to sort of show their appreciation, and I turned around and there's Roger Taylor, Brian May, Adam Lambert, and Brian's pointing at me. It was just...
It's an incredible, iconic photograph. I've seen the photograph before. It is hats off to the photographer who managed to get it right at that moment where Brian May is pointing towards you.
That photograph was taken by Alan Morrison, who for the large parts has been the band photographer.
Yeah.
We managed to get him a photography pass to be there to try and capture the moment.
Yeah.
And as you say, he absolutely did it.
Yeah.
Like that.
It is an incredible photograph.
Yeah. Like it's a very, very special photograph to have.
Yeah.
Like there's no doubt about that. And at that point, they went into "We Will Rock You" and into "We Are the Champions." I ran to my dressing room after being on there playing "We Will Rock You." I remember jumping up and down to myself in my dressing room. I hadn't really told many of my friends that I was doing this. I told Ross it was happening, and my family knew, but I hadn't really told anyone.
Yeah.
And I just remember being in this bubble in my dressing room, jumping up and down, going, "I've just played with Queen," and I cracked open a beer and I just downed it in one. It was honest. And I stood there down in this beer, hearing the last refrains of "We Are the Champions."
Yeah.
It was just, what a moment. Like it was very, very, very special. After the show, I remember having a beer or a couple of beers, and then I got a knock to say that I was welcome to go along and share a drink with the band.
Yeah.
So I went into their kind of communal dressing room area that they had and sat with the four of them. Well, the three of them. I was the fourth one. Brian, Roger, Adam, and me. And just thinking, this is ridiculous. But let me tell you though, that is the best red wine I've ever had in my life. And I even had the cheek to ask for a second glass. And I don't know, on the note of like apologies, I don't know if Roger was that happy that he had to give me so much of their wine. Brian, Roger, thank you for the wine. Apologies, I owe you some wine. Although I have to say that their wine is probably rather expensive.
I was going to say, you're not going to replace it with top quality wine, are you?
We could replace it with red wine from a certain German supermarket.
Yeah, that's 4 letters.
It is possible. We sat there and I remember asking them about. I think one of the questions that if you're sat there with Queen, what do you ask them? What would you ask them?
I think genuinely my first question would be, what was it like working with Freddie Mercury? Mm-hmm. Because everybody knows Freddie Mercury as well. But unless even when you watch films like Bohemian Rhapsody, if you've seen that film, it tells you a lot of the story, but you never really know for sure. So I think that would be my question. What was it actually like being friends with him? Yeah, I did,
and as I say, that was spoken about a lot in that dressing room conversation with Brian when he said, that Freddie would have loved a man in a kilt and whatnot.
Yeah.
One of my questions I definitely remember asking was, is it true that bands look forward to playing in Scotland? Like, are the Scottish crowds sort of as rowdy as you'd think?
Yeah.
And they were like, nah, it's it's quite a cliche sometimes, was the response they got. And they then spoke about it, and they said that South America is the best place to play.
Ah, right, okay.
Brazil, Argentina. Yeah. I think one of them mentioned Japan as well.
Yeah.
But again, you can imagine the crowds in these kind of... I mean, the Scottish crowds are mad.
Yeah.
And there's probably many a band that would say that Scotland is a special place.
That's quite interesting, because I wonder how many bands sort of say, Scotland, thank you, you've been incredible, you've been amazing. And they maybe actually... they haven't been amazing, maybe. Maybe we, as Scottish people who love music, need to do better.
Potentially.
Just a thought.
It's an interesting thought. Yeah, but I suppose Queen are the kind of band that have toured relentlessly for many, many years and played in front of so many different audiences that if anyone's going to say who the best crowds are... they're certainly well qualified to do so.
We've not been to South America yet, have we?
We've not been to South America yet, no. We've not even conquered South America on the podcast yet.
No.
If anyone wants to listen in Brazil, Argentina, Bolivia, let's not name any more in case we get them wrong.
There is a lot.
Yeah, in case we get the wrong continent as well. So I got a message from my sister while we're sat there having those glasses of red wine. Mm-hmm. And she said, are the band coming through to mingle?
Oh, okay.
At that point, Adam was kind of going off to bed. Mm-hmm. I don't know what Roger was doing, but I said to Brian, would you mind coming through and meeting my family?
Yeah.
He's like, yeah, no problem. So I remember, I hadn't seen my family from after the show until this point when I walked through the door with Brian May. Mm-hmm. And at that point, I remember the door opening and seeing all of their faces like stunned that I had to just walk through the door with Brian May.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the power of it, man. He's obviously an absolute legend. And my dad was a big Queen fan growing up.
Yeah.
He's got a few of their like classic vinyls and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
I then had to introduce Brian to everyone in my family. And I've never seen my dad so stunned and lost for words, speechless, ever before.
Yeah.
He stood there just looking at him. Brian, that was brilliant, Brian, Brian, and it's just like, wow, he just couldn't find his words at all. But that was obviously very special, introducing Brian to all the family. Yeah. My sister was gutted she didn't get to meet Adam because of the singing, obviously.
Yeah.
For the record, my sister is a keen singer as well. That's what 2-3 mentions of my sister. So I think that apology's been done.
We're not going to name this episode Rachel, are we?
No.
Right,
I don't think that would be entirely appropriate. But maybe a future episode could be called Rachel. Yeah. So from there, I didn't know if I would ever speak to Brian again or have any involvement with Queen and Adam Lambert, and I'd have been quite happy if there was never anything more. Because it was such a special night. Undoubtedly one of the best nights of my life, and for as long as I live, that will be right there in my memories. However, we're going to talk in a future episode about how I put together my piece Highland Road. And I thought, why not ask Brian to contribute a line of the poem to the track? And he agreed and sent me over his line, but he also noted that I would have to deal with the record label. Which I had not really thought about. The fact that I was going to have to deal with the Queen record label.
Yeah.
And I was messaging back and forth with Jim Beach. If you've seen the Bohemian Rhapsody film, he's the record label guy that in the film.
In the film.
And so he agreed that we could include Brian's voice, but that we would have to sign a release form in order for that to happen. So I've got a release form that, of I, Brian May, and he'd signed his name, consent to my voice saying, and you and I will know it when we walk the Highland Road, being included for release in Craig Weir and the Kabbalistic Cavalry's Highland Road. Yeah. And he signed it and dated it. And it's like, wow, a very cool thing to have, to be fair. I got that from him, and after the track was released, I sent it over to Brian to ask his professional opinion on Highland Road. Yeah. And he replied, "I got it. Thanks. Very nice. You could say I was happy to pour a little of my Scottish blood into this epic. I didn't know that Brian May was half Scottish. Did you?"
I didn't know that, actually. No.
I asked him about it then, and he said that his mum was a Scot through and through, and he's exactly half and half. Okay. He actually said, not to get too political, on the 11th of February 2017, he's actually much more proud of my Scottish components than my English one right now.
Oh, not getting political.
Not at all.
No.
Not at all. From there, again, I didn't know if I'd have any further involvement, but I thought I'd chance my arm, and I asked him if I could go to... I was going to be in Boston. I was going to be in Boston for a very small show at the Black Rose bar, a kind of Celtic influenced bar. I was basically doing a tour of Canada at the time, which we're going to talk about in a future episode too, and was dropping into Boston, crossing over the border into Boston to play that little show at the Black Rose. Yeah. Coincidentally, the night before, Queen were going to be there. So I asked Brian if I could go, and he sorted me out along with my good friend Chris in Canada, who's been listening to the podcast. Thanks for that.
Hello, Chris.
Hello. And Mags. And the three of us went along. I think the two of them... So first of all, for me, it was unbelievable to be able to sit back, relax and enjoy the whole show from start to finish, knowing that I didn't have to deal with the jangling nerves of going on the stage. Yep. And Chris and Mags were absolutely blown away with the whole thing too. Yeah. Again, they changed the production for that show, or for that tour. It was a different tour than the one I had played on. Yeah. But it was no less spectacular. It was absolutely huge. Unbelievable. Haven't had much dealings with Queen or so since then. I had dropped Brian a message to see if he might fancy doing the Pipes thing again when they headlined Transmit Festival, but he said that it was very tight because it was a festival show, and obviously they were set and they wanted to make the most of the time that they had on stage, which was totally fair enough. Yeah. And I'd hoped to get some of them on the podcast, but we never say never. We might be able to do that at a future date. Yeah. As we record this, though, as we speak, Queen and Adam Lambert are number one in the UK charts, in the album charts.
It's quite incredible that they're still number one going on however many years they've been producing records.
But I think the last record, I read that the last record came out and went to number one in November 1995.
Wow.
So for them to then be able to release a live album with a different frontman and still have that absolute worldwide draw. Yeah. I think it went number one in the UK and Australia on the same day. Wonder if we were listened to in the UK and Australia on that same day.
I hope so. I really hope so. If you're listening in Australia, actually, because we asked this beforehand, if either of us knew anybody in Australia who's listening, and we both don't. So if you're in Australia and you're listening to this, do get in touch, because we would like to know, actually.
A grand total of 1% of our listeners are made up of Australia right now.
Which, if there's only 10 people listening...
It's one.
That's a whole person.
That's a whole person.
That is a whole person. So if you are that whole person, do get in touch somehow.
Yeah. Send us a letter via pigeon.
Yeah.
And maybe it'll get to us by the end of the episodes, or at the end of the series.
Hopefully.
The last point before we finish this up is that so many people. I don't know if you follow. Yeah, if you follow Queen on any of their social media stuff, do you?
No, I don't actually. No.
Facebook. They are constantly, point after point after point after point after point about how they need to stop playing because Freddie's no longer with us, because Adam Lambert's not Freddie. Yeah. I think as someone who's been involved in the show and as someone who's now seen a couple of their shows and has followed them since, Adam makes very, very clear in this show that he's not trying to be Freddie. That they're there to try and pay tribute to one of the greatest rock and roll frontmen of all time. Yeah. And so I think it's very closed-minded of people to be so shut off to the idea of having Adam Lambert there singing with them.
I think as well, when you go to see Queen, it's not like you're going to see Freddie. You're not seeing Freddie Mercury. You're seeing Queen as the band, as them. So alongside that, there is Brian, there is Roger. So you're seeing the Queen experience, if you like.
Yeah.
And as you say, I've not been to see them, but I've seen videos and listened to them stuff. And obviously Adam isn't Freddie. He's a totally different person, but he's bringing his aspect to it, his performance and his vocals to it as well.
And for me, there isn't, at this point, there is no greater person to be fronting that band than him.
Yeah.
I know he gets a hard time because obviously he was a contestant on American Idol, which is where him and Brian met, because Brian was doing some sort of guesting on the show. But I think regardless of that, like, he is the perfect person to be up front and centre with Queen at that point.
And I think the day that Queen do stop producing or touring or whatnot, I think it would be a sad day. I would definitely think it would be.
Yeah. You've been to see the Queen statue, the Freddie Mercury statue in Montreux, eh?
I have, yeah.
Not Montrose.
Not Montrose, that's a totally different town. There's no... Well, I think there's statues in Montrose.
Yeah, but I don't think there's one of Freddie, eh?
No, there's definitely not. I was in Montreux, Switzerland, back in 2013, I think it was. For those that maybe have been before, we were at the Montreux Jazz Festival.
And were you working?
It was kind of a... how would you describe it?
Knees up.
Not holiday. I would definitely say knees up. Yeah,
networking event.
That's the word I was looking for. We were networking in Switzerland. No, it's an incredible festival actually. I've always wanted to either take yourself or the guys or the band and everyone, because it's like a 3-week long festival that attracts so many live acts. And when we were there, one of the headliners was Green Day, and Green Day, they'll easily sell out 30,000 people. But the venue we were in, I think it's only like 5,000 or 6,000. I might be wrong, but it's a very small venue.
Intimate in comparison.
Yeah. And it's an incredible festival because we had like say Green Day one night and then someone totally different, like actual jazz acts in the exact same room the next day. So it's two totally different things. But yeah, in Montreux, along the front boardwalk, I guess you would call it, there is the Freddie Mercury statue, iconic statue. And whenever you go, there's always people there. Always. Even at 5 a.m, I think, when we finished our knees up that night, I think we'll call
networking.
The networking event that night, we were walking back to the hotel at 5 a.m. and came across, we were just...
John Whiteface.
It wasn't John Whiteface.
He wasn't there.
No, it wasn't John.
Jed Grimes, and you gave him a coffee.
No, but Jed still hasn't been in touch about that coffee yet.
Jed.
Not that I'm bitter about that, but coffee would be nice.
No bitterness at all.
So we came across, we were walking towards the Freddie Mercury statue, and because we're Scottish and we had alcohol in our system, there's this thing when Scottish people have alcohol in their system, they become very, let's say, rowdy, I would say. Loud and...
Are we just clarifying this to our American listeners that you can
American, Australian, wherever you are in the world, if you recognise anybody... I mean, firstly, they'll have a Scottish accent. That's the giveaway.
It's quite a giveaway.
Quite a giveaway. So we were walking towards the Freddie Mercury statue, quite rowdy, and there was this gentleman standing just in front of the statue, and he turned to us and said, "Oh, you must be Scottish." And we were sort of taken aback because I'm not sure how, but he obviously knew because of our rowdiness, and he wasn't wrong. We were Scottish, and we kind of struck up this conversation, wondering why this gentleman was standing in front of the Freddie Mercury statue at 5 o'clock in the morning during the festival. And he kind of said to us, we were chatting away for a wee bit, and he said his name was David Richards. For those avid Queen fans will know that David Richards was a producer for Queen. So we were kind of Scottish, as you are, and you're...
Kind of Scottish.
We were a wee bit Scottish. And we were sort of listening to his stories, and there was part of you that goes, what are the chances that we're sitting here listening to the stories of Queen's producer? Just by pure chance came across it in the street, and it was like a sort of, you pinch yourself going, is this true? And credit to Mr. Richards, he said to us the next, if we're still at the festival the next day, he's doing a lot of TV editing and stuff for the recordings of the festival, so meet him and he'll take us around the tour. So we got back to the hotel next morning. We had to Google his name just to check that it was
real.
Yeah, the Google image thing, just to make sure that it was. And it was actually him, and we were at that point almost starstruck ourselves, going, we've just spoken to him about his experiences of working with Queen and producing their albums, and it was incredible to meet him, knowing that he was directly involved with Freddie and Brian and Roger. And sadly, I actually just found out before this that he had actually passed away just a few months afterwards, December that year, which was that took me back.
So meeting you does to people?
Yeah, if you meet Scottish people, be prepared.
But we were googling him just before we came on. He also produced for David Bowie and stuff as well, so it's a big name to have met. Whilst networking at one of the festivals.
Yeah, it was definitely networking. Honestly.
Definitely networking.
Yeah,
it was. People all around the world know how important Queen are, still are to this day. They're so still. If you go to any party, any 18th, 21st, 30th, 40th wedding, funeral, maybe, like the chances of a Queen song being there, are very, very high. And I think I count myself really lucky that I count myself really lucky that I had that opportunity to guest with Queen and Adam Lambert. It'll forever be one of the greatest nights of my life. Yeah,
and hopefully there's Queen's fans around the world, wherever they are listening to this, and
they'll add to our contributions of countries around the world.
As well as the person in Australia who's let us know. Let us know if you've never heard of Queen. Because can
you imagine? There's some guy out there in Australia in the outback with a didgeridoo with a hat with corks in it. Listen to us with these headphones in right there right now.
I wonder if there is somebody in the middle of nowhere tuning in. Actually, I mean, obviously, like Graham's a farmer, so he's in the middle of nowhere. But
do you honestly think he's listening?
No, he doesn't like the bagpipes, does he?